Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the second night of Seek Week. I'm so excited to be here with Dr. Christine Whelan. Hi, Christine. How are you?
Hi, Jean. Good to see you. How are you doing?
Yes. Yes, you too. I'm good. I'm slowly recovering from my kids' birthday parties that were this past weekend. They
Sleepovers or just
Yes,
a
turning 10 and 13. So on Friday night, my daughter had her party. On Saturday night, my son had his party, and they were both backyard sleepovers, and it was just total mayhem. So last
Oh
night I
my
felt like I
goodness.
was a bit of a zombie, but
Uh,
tonight I think I've got a little more pep. So
oh, well, good for you. You're a wonderful mother to do that, and we can swap tips on ways to make these birthday parties less onerous. Because
yes.
now that I'm on kid number 5 with these, I can tell you like there are ways to make them really seem special um, without having to have everybody in your house.
Yeah, that would be nice. It's you know what, the tent situation is actually pretty simple.
Yeah.
There's not like it's not a lot for us to deal with, but it's a bit sensory overload.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello, Dr. Doyle.
What's up,
It's
Glenn?
a good week to seek.
It's a
Yeah.
good week to
Safely.
seek.
Only
I love
safely
it.
though. It's a good week
Mm.
to seek safely. Hey gang, what's up?
Hi there. So yes, I'm glad you're here because we cannot have our self-help geek off
No.
without the two of you. You guys are our resident self-help geeks. You are instrumental to this evening. And it was really funny because I thought as we were planning Seek Week, I was just like, I feel like I've asked all the questions I can ask. And then I just had like this stroke of, I don't know, it was like divine inspiration or something. And I thought of all these great questions. So I'm really excited to get into it with you guys.
And funny that you should say divine inspiration because I went to my bookshelf and I have hundreds and hundreds of self-help books. And there was one that I don't know that we've like really fully explored and geeked out on, and
Mhm.
that is in the religious self-help column. And so it's so funny that you should say that because
Well,
You're
I
gonna
have
take us down
actual.
that rabbit hole, really?
Oh
Okay.
no,
I
but a particular vein of that rabbit hole.
Oh, lay it on us.
Can I just like jump right into
just
this
go
idea?
for it because you know what? Here, I'll
Tell me.
that will just lead right into one of our questions. I was actually going to ask. I feel like society, like the kind of younger generation, I kind of feel like we're becoming a little more religious again.
Yeah.
And so I was going to ask what you feel like that's going to do to the self-help industry. And Christine, I feel like that's an in for you to bring up this.
Okay. So little nerd out. I mean, like because you've invited us to geek out, right? I'm going to geek out a little bit about this.
Yeah, go
So
for it.
first of all, religious self-help books have been and are currently the largest subset of the self-help industry. About like 40% of self-help books that are out there
Mm.
are religious self-help books. The thing is, we don't really know about them if we are only looking at like the New York Times bestseller list or at the Associated Press bestseller list, because for the most part, they are kept off the bestseller lists. Why? If they were on them, they would take up most of the list. And
Mm.
so when folks put together these bestseller lists, they tend not to go to Christian bookstores and other religious bookstores, and so but yet there is this huge market out there of religious self-help books. So after I did my PhD on the self-help industry, I was like, wait, why hasn't anybody really looked at this element of it? So I applied for a postdoc. And I was shortlisted, but alas, did not get the postdoc because what I wanted
Mm.
to study was religion.
I'll be right
And
back.
that's fine. I've terrified him already. I've now
You
he's
drove him away.
bored of me. I know I drove him away. But so and so I wanted to do this postdoc on this, but then I got another opportunity and I got something called the Templeton Cambridge Journalism Fellowship.
Mm.
And I spent the summer looking at, are you ready for it?
I'm ready.
Religious diet self-help books.
Oh, nice. Yes.
So for
Very
example,
niche. Love it.
there are books like Faithfully Fit. We're just starting
Wait a
slow.
minute. Can we show that again? We've got the cross with the utensils. Oh my gosh.
Okay,
Incredible.
we're starting
Yes.
slow. We're starting
Love
slow,
it.
guys. All right, let's see. What do I want to show you next? Then there would be the Hallelujah Diet.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is going right for it.
Okay.
Love it.
Then, because the Hallelujah Diet isn't enough, we have the Maker's Diet. And the Maker's Diet is a 40-day challenge. It's a health experience that will change your life forever. And basically, the idea is you're going to eat what Jesus ate, and that's going to make you. But
wow, it's like religious paleo. Love it. Oh my God.
Fat Jesus. Mm-hmm. And then there are ones that I don't have the books of. By the way, Glenn, these are the kinds of things that you missed.
I come back to Fat Jesus.
Oh my God.
You come back to Fat Jesus. Maker's Diet.
Maker's Diet.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
Hallelujah Diet. And then the very subtle Faithfully Fit with a knife and the fork. But what I don't have, I have pictures of that I could probably show, my favorite one, which has the title, More of Jesus, Less of Me.
Yes, that's excellent.
And so I just wanted to throw out there that that this exists within the self-help community. I have a lot of thoughts about it. But how about that as like a really geeky thing that most people would not think about? But there is a whole religious diet self-help world.
Oh, absolutely. You bet.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely knew there was a lot of religious self-help stuff. I mean, there's a lot of it in my parents' house, right?
Is there? Tell us more.
But the whole diet thing, I wasn't really aware how much of that there was. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Have you heard of a woman named Gwen Shamblin?
Oh, that's what I was gonna. If you didn't bring it up,
are you going to go there, or Dr. Doyle?
Well, backing up from that, I mean, religious self-help is kind of the worm at the core, right? Like, what's the most famous self-help book in the history of self-help books? It's The Power of Positive Thinking.
Oh, I was going to say the Bible.
Or the Bible.
Well, okay, sure, right. So maybe the second most famous self-help book in the history of self-help is The Power of American self-help. We'll say,
sure,
is The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale, which is both super religious, super Jesus-y, and also an excellent self-help book.
Excellent. One of my favorites.
Right. In terms of like one of my big complaints about lots of self-help books. I'm sorry I had to wait. Guy just knocked on my door, ran into my car in the garage, and he's trying to apologize. And I'm like, I'm on the internet live right now.
No.
Right.
Oh no.
So I'm a little distracted right now. I'm like, interesting. Anyway.
Hey, this is live streaming. This is what happens. Right?
This is life. Do you think maybe he needs a self-help book?
He does. I need The Power of Positive Thinking. So one of my big complaints about self-help books, and Lord knows you and I have both read lots of them, and we've read good ones and bad ones. The good ones, like, they make a dent, like there's something that you can take and use. And The Power of Positive Thinking is one of those books.
Totally.
Now, it's a little inaccessible if you can't get on board with the Jesus.
Yep.
Right, because Peale was famously like in New York, like he was America's minister, kind of right before Billy Graham kind of took it and ran with it.
Totally, at Grace Church, right?
You bet, Grace Presbyterian Church in New York. But then you got The Power of Positive Thinking, super Jesus-y. Like the secular self-help book really is kind of a newer American thing. It is. And the interesting transition point with that, I think, is good old Stephen Covey and the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, because on the one hand, like that's a self-help book that makes a dent, right? Like you read the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, you're going to come away different. You're going to come, if you scratch, and it seems completely secular. If you, right? If you scratch the surface, you see the Mormon, like you see the Mormon stuff in there, right? But the point is, I think that was kind of a transitional moment for American self-help. So anymore, for a long time, mainstream self-help, as epitomized by my boy Tony Robbins, who is completely secular and stuff, like we think of modern self-help as this really secular thing, but that's actually kind of new.
It is.
There's another interesting transition point when we talk about religious self-help. So my man M. Scott Peck,
yep,
who wrote one of my favorite self-help books, one of my favorite books ever, The Road Less Traveled.
Mm-hmm.
I tell the story about The Road Less Traveled. So when I was this desperately depressed teenager, and I'm in the self-help section, and I pick up The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck, and I open it to its first page, and
life is difficult.
The first sentence is life is difficult. And I thought about that for a second, and then I closed the book, I put it back. I'm like, I know life is difficult. I don't need you to tell me that. I'm suicidal in the self-help section of Barnes and Noble. Anyway. But M. Scott
That's also the first pillar of Buddhism.
Yeah.
It is.
Right?
Life is suffering.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Peck at the time, and so interestingly, Peck actually, his background was Buddhist. And he famously had this big conversion experience where he got really into mystical Christianity. And that book, The Road Less Traveled, it's one of the most famous self-help books of all time. Mm-hmm. It starts out just steeped in psychoanalytic psychology. Mm-hmm. Like he's talking about ego states, and he's talking about unconscious motivation. Like he is a classically trained analyst, and you can see all the Freud. And then about halfway, would you say, through Road Less Traveled, he gallops into Christian mysticism.
Yep.
But he writes about it in this really interesting, compelling, I feel accessible way. Mm-hmm. That, if normally you'd kind of be turned off by that kind of thing, you're like, I gotta find out what's. And at the very end, he's talking about how, like, ultimately we're all striving toward godhood, which is almost that too is kind of a Mormon thing.
Okay, so here's the thing. And maybe it's just because I personally agree with them more. Yeah. But there's there's the religious self-help books like M. Scott Peck and Norman Vincent Peale that I think are great because they're sort of mainstream standard moral and character guidance for how to live a good life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When we get into some of the more fringe elements of the religious self-help books world, I get really worried because it seems not only a distortion of Christianity, but it seems like it is using Christianity as a power play over the readers. And that's when I get a little worked up about these books. And that's why I was interested in studying these religious diet self-help books, because one of the key themes in this was that Jesus was the male gaze, and that women wanted to be beautiful for Jesus and wanted Jesus to love them. They needed to lose weight. And that to me was so insidious. And yet, because, we're geeking out, but also because we're being real about stuff, I spent my summer studying these religious diet self-help books. I knew that I was very critical of them. But I got to tell you, by the end of the summer, my friends said to me, you're not eating as much.
I was just going to say, was there less of you and more of Jesus?
Yes. Well, I'm not sure about more of Jesus, but there certainly was less of me. It gave me kind of a mild, eating complex.
Right.
And I got really self-conscious only because I was down this rabbit hole of these books. And as a person, I'm a practicing Catholic. And so this was playing into my this was sort of distorting my religion and distorting my faith in this weird way. Anyway, I'm totally fascinated by that intersection of power, religion, and the self-help guru.
Sure.
So,
well, and I'm curious about it too, because I feel like, I grew up very Catholic as well. And, I have a lot of respect for the way that my parents maintained our Catholicism within our family. I think they did it in a really lovely way. But the religion that I see kind of now, it seems a lot more on the fundamentalist side. That's, growing in North America, really, not just in the US. And, I'm concerned about how that, influencing self-help. I feel like that is like a perfect storm. Like you're saying, it plays on so many parts of ourselves and so many concerns or areas of fears and insecurities, that I feel like there's a lot of opportunity for harm there.
Yeah. Well, so my take on religious self-help is similar to my take on all wacky self-help, and I say wacky respectfully, because you guys know. So you guys know I too am Catholic, but I'm more of the woo-woo, weirdo kind of mystic Catholicism, and this is stuff because I have boundaries. I don't really talk about that in public, right?
except in live stream on the internet.
Except in live stream on the internet.
Okay, just
once
checking.
a year. Once a year, we got to raise money, Christine.
It's all bets are off. Everything's on the table.
I love it.
So you guys know that one of my real interests is cults and religious movements and stuff. And when I say things are wacky, I don't mean that disrespectfully or even in the sense necessarily that they're false. I don't know. Like what is real and unreal when it comes to God and stuff is way above my pay grade, intellectually, spiritually, and otherwise. I do know that I love the wacky stories of including the Christian story. I love it. Like he died. He came back. He appeared in the room. Oh, I'm all in. I'm in. Yes. And the saints, they're pulling off miracles and stuff. And I'm in. But I also love the golden plates, Joseph Smith and the plates, and he's looking in the hat with the stones. I love it. I'm in. I also love Xenu. I love him. He dropped the Thetans into the volcanoes, and yes. But here's why I love it. I love it because I love the power of stories to direct our attention.
Yes.
Right. And to make certain to give us access to certain internal resources that we might not otherwise have. So if you can, and there's a question in the chat about spiritual bypassing. This is kind of what we're talking about. Like there's a big difference. Well, there's a fine line. I was about to say there's a big difference. There's a fine line between using a story, whether it's a myth or a religion or whatever, a belief, right? BS, belief systems are also BS. But using that to support a behavior or a habit I'm trying to develop or quit or like whatever. Perfect example, 12-step. 12-step addiction recovery is big on the higher power. And it's something that breaks a lot of folks' brain. They're like, well, what if I'm agnostic? And what if I'm not into the God thing? And they're saying the Our Father at meetings. And what are we doing here? What is that? What is the higher power? Does it actually mean you got to turn your life over to God? Some people would say yes. I would respectfully say no. I would respectfully say that the idea of a higher power or the story of a higher power makes accessible certain resources in me that allow me to abstain from drinking tonight. Mm-hmm. Right? Gwen Shamblin, The Way Down. Mm-hmm. If you think about it, she's using the idea of God, or the idea of a God that wants you to be a certain shape and size and stuff. Now she took that to an extreme.
Oh yeah.
Right. And her group took that to an extreme. Wow, there's a brutal documentary on HBO Max.
Highly recommend it. Whew. Highly recommend that documentary. Yeah.
Trigger warning for folks with eating issues, but it's
totally
rough. But in itself, that idea of using that story of a God that wants you to be a certain shape and size and stuff, and using that to make it possible for you to avoid the binge eating that night. To me, that's an interesting idea. Now, of course, it has a downside and a danger, a dark side.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where the Seek Safely compass, if I can shill the Seek Safely compass for a minute, like this is where staying in touch with our values and our needs and our actual experience, and not surrendering entirely to the story that we're being told by a guru or even a spiritual community.
Yes.
Can be really, really handy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that is and I think that's why esoteric spirituality, religion, psychology, why all these things come together in such a supercharged mix for people, right? Because they all tell a story that taps an emotion, and that can really tap a very and can be a catalyst for change. And that's what we're looking for, right? We are looking to make a change, to better ourselves. We're seeking something. And so I certainly, the fact that about 40% of self-help books are religious self-help books means that people are really seeking with a spiritual lens.
You bet. You bet.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that that's, sinister always by any means. Sure. It's just, it's just, how do you have the guardrails?
Sure. There's a whole thing about, like, when we talk about spiritual bypassing, like, this is something that's, like the non-Christian spiritual self-help books, because that's a thing too, right?
Totally.
Like the new agey, law of attraction-y, quantum mystical quantum physics.
We can never get through a self-help geek off, by the way, without going toward the law of attraction.
We can't. No, it's the worm at the core, man.
It's pervasive.
I mean, talk about like the thing that, like, that gets me all riled up.
For real.
Yeah.
But so we got Joe Dispenza, and we got God, even guys like Bob Proctor. Kind of with this again, it's kind of a secular version of what in some ways Norman Vincent Peale talks about in The Power of Positive Thinking, because you're still placing your fate, your goals, like whatever, in the hands of this mystical thing. Norman Vincent Peale calls it God. Bob Proctor, Joe Dispenza would call it the law of attraction. Actually, Joe Dispenza would call it the quantum field, right? But it's still kind of that same bypassing thing. It's worth noting that every self-help philosophy is going to have the same problem. It's going to have a version of the problem of negative thoughts are going to happen. Like, especially like anybody who's picking up a self-help book. I say this from extensive experience in my own life. Anybody who's picking up a self-help book is vulnerable to negative thoughts, right? Because we've been conditioned. We've been conditioned to feel shitty, right? 24 minutes in, and I ruined the rating of the live stream by swearing. Sorry, gang.
Fine with that. I'm fine with that.
So they all have the same problem, that we're going to feel crappy at some point. We're going to have negative thoughts, and they all have to solve that problem somehow. Both religious, explicitly religious, and also spiritual self-help kind of does it the same way. The law of attraction handles that problem by saying, if you think negative thoughts, you're doing it wrong. And if you're not getting the results, it's probably because you're thinking negative thoughts, because you're doing it wrong, right? And so they try to solve that problem, and it's a bypass of that problem. It doesn't really solve that problem. It bypasses that problem by saying, gosh, just don't do it. Don't do it. If you want to do it right, don't do it, right? The problem being that thoughts are reflexive. Thoughts are automatic. Thoughts, like we don't, we choose a subset of our thoughts, but we don't choose. It's like choosing our feelings. Like, we can choose how we feel. Do we have influence over how we feel? Of course we have influence over how.
But as Mary was saying in the comments, she was talking about Norman Vincent Peale in relation to spiritual bypass, right? And the idea of positive vibes only. And I think that's great. Yeah, positive thoughts. Or sorry, it's not Mary. It's Beth Miller. Yes, Beth Miller was saying positive vibes only. That's a really interesting one, because that's something that we see all over Instagram now, all over TikTok. Those platitudes of positive, positive vibes only. I also dislike that. I get all riled up about that because obviously we need to sort of feel to have a rich life is to feel all the feelings.
Yeah.
At the same time, what I always say to my kids about this is, no, it's certainly not positive vibes only. However, and the law of attraction is not an actual law of the universe, the way it's being put out there.
Dare you? How dare you?
However, it is true that if I come in all smiley and perky and happy, I will likely have a better outcome in most things than if I come in sullen and sort of looking down and defeated all the time. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this is where we get back to, my absolute favorite of all time, Dale Carnegie, and How to Win Friends and Influence People, right? Because this is where we get back to this idea of presentation of self in the right circumstances. So it's not positive vibes only. It's not spiritual bypass. You don't have to do any of that. But when you are on the front stage, then know that the way that you present yourself will have an effect on what you get. But certainly feel the feelings the backstage as well.
This is the same copy of How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie that I bought when I was a sophomore in high school.
It's on my shelf here.
Look at this thing. This thing is falling apart, man.
Beth contributes. She says it's situational, isn't it? And
it is.
Yeah. As someone else says, it's impossible positive vibes only. You'd have to lie to yourself to claim and maintain it, which I would agree with. I feel like, I don't know, I'm kind of, if there's any sort of doctrine or like advice in life that I really hold on to and just kind of rings true for me again and again, it's the idea of moderation in everything. That, that there's got to be a balance, that for sure, psychologically, if we can try to maintain a more positive outlook or a positive attitude, or, we start something with a more positive, mindset, it does seem to impact our experience. But you need to also be realistic about, what is going on and what the reality of the situation is. There's a balance to it. So,
well, that leads into, so there's research behind that too. Like from a psych point of view, there's research. A psychologist named Martin Seligman, who was very big into a principle, like he was one of the big researchers into something we call learned helplessness. And so the learned helplessness in psychology is this principle that when we try and fail to produce a result, right? Or when we feel that we cannot escape pain, right? Like we try and we try and we try and we still hurt. We eventually stop trying, like we have a sense of helplessness, but it's not an inherent sense of, like, we learn it, like out of repeated experiences of frustration or failure. And so Seligman was really well known for this concept of learned helplessness. Then he tried to pivot, and he did a bunch of research into what he called learned optimism. He eventually wrote a book titled Learned Optimism. It's one of the most maddening self-help books in the world, and I'll tell you why in a moment. But his research said that, you go in with a good attitude and you tend to get better results. And that's the kind of thing that the law of attraction guys would explain as, well, your thoughts were influencing the vibes, were influencing the molecules, and you're getting in alignment with a good result, and blah, blah, blah. The way that Seligman explained it was, well, no, like when we have a good attitude, we have more access to internal resources than we might otherwise, right? Like, so if we think something's going to work out, we're an optimist. We think something's going to work out, we're more inclined to keep trying. We're more inclined to try different things. We're more inclined to ask for help. Like we're more inclined to do all these things, right? And that makes sense. There's no vibes required.
No vibes. Right.
Now, that book, Learned Optimism, is a maddening self-help book because for most of its runtime, it's talking about this theory, and it's a really interesting theory, and the research is interesting. Learned helplessness and learned optimism. and blah, blah, blah. It's so cool and interesting. But each chapter he says, and soon I'm going to tell you the specific way to apply this in your life. And he builds it up as if he's got the secret sauce to become an optimist, like if you're a pessimist. And you get to the final chapter and he's like, okay, you're ready for it? You're ready for the secret sauce? And he pulls out the most basic bitch. It's called, if you're familiar with rational motive therapy and Albert Ellis,
yeah,
it's the ABCD. It's a form of cognitive therapy. It's the most basic, like first year graduate students learn this stuff on their first day. And he's like, here's how you untwist your pessimistic thoughts. And I'm like, that's it. That's what you got for me is the Albert Ellis ABCD framework. Like, come on, man. I thought you had the secret sauce. And so that learned optimism goes on one of my lists of frustrating self-help books.
On your shit list.
Yes.
Although positive psychology as a field it did take the world by storm for a couple of decades.
It certainly did.
I think it opened the door for things like The Secret, because I feel like it gives some weight to this idea that our thoughts can influence our reality.
Right.
It was like a primer for us.
Maybe the law of attraction, though, really came out of this woo-woo mysticism sort of self-help strain that's been going along for a long time.
Yeah,
like one of my favorite fun facts is the word mesmerize comes from a dude named Franz Mesmer.
Good old Franz.
Franz Mesmer during the New Thought movement around the turn of the last century, so around 1900, 1910, Franz Mesmer was mesmerizing people, was hypnotizing people as a way to make them happy. And he was doing all this hoodoo voodoo kind of stuff on them, by the way, including a fair amount of standard brain Christianity at the same time, under this idea of whatever he was going to do. And he called it a mind cure. And this mind cure goes way, way back, right? So I think that thread really kind of peaked in the 1970s with and 80s with Celestine Prophecy and some of those other books, which, by the way, I really loved. I was supposed to not like the Celestine Prophecy, but I was totally caught up in it as like a what's going to happen next. I mean, I got to tell you, I was all in on. I mean, talk about a good story. I digress. And Dr. Doyle wants to put his head in his hands. Yes, but so I don't know. I feel like the law of attraction and The Secret really come from that thread. At its core, positive psychology is really pretty. Sort of basic behavioral psychology.
It is. And as a movement, it's important to kind of contextualize what positive psychology was reacting against, right?
Yes.
Because like clinical psychology for years had been, to say dominated undersells it, like had been dominated by Freud and psychoanalysis and Freud and the Neo-Freudians and stuff it's all really dark stuff. Like it's all. I was
going to say it's definitely not happy stuff.
It's not like it's all about how most of what we do because we're horny or angry, but we can't handle the fact that we're horny or angry, so we sublimate it all, and it comes out in all these symptoms and blah blah blah. And so what positive psychology was reacting against was, like, can there be a form of applied psychology, that maybe isn't depressing as fuck, and that maybe, leaves us feeling good and happy and stuff. And positive psychology, as part of the zeitgeist, went hand in hand with what we call the behavioral revolution, because American psychology, psychoanalysis and Freud was all very European. Like it's all very dark and European and stuff. American psychology has been very possibility driven psychology, right? Like it's all behaviors. I'm like, we can change our behaviors. We can do it. We can just like the pigeons in the Skinner box. We can stop smoking and we can lose weight. We can do all this stuff. And so kind of positive psychology and cognitive psychology kind of, are part of that strain of like American, we can do it.
Absolutely.
And yet, bootstrap stuff.
And yet, okay, so then there was something else I wanted to bring up, which is another one of my sawhorses, really, is the fact that let's say that we really want to get better, right? And we really want to buy the right self-help book. And we really want to do the thing that is going to really help us. So, of course, we don't want self-help that doesn't work or that is dangerous. We only want self-help that works. So then you would think a book like this, self-help that works, that reviews the best-selling self-help books, that reviews all these self-help books according to psychologists and explains in a paragraph on each of them why they are good and how many stars they receive, and explains why a book like this should be a bestseller, right? Everybody should want to buy this first before buying any other book.
When was that published?
Oh, I don't know. From Oxford University Press, it was published. This is one of a couple of these books by a guy named John Norcross is the lead author, and I.
We
Theory of Change.
Norcross, you bet.
I think is fantastic. But let's see. This was published in. I'm looking. In 2013, and it was not a bestseller by any means. And books of this type have come out, every decade or two. And you would think that they would do well. You would think that people would want to do this, but nobody is interested because that's not how people buy self-help.
No.
That's not how we think about solving our problems. It's much more story-driven, feeling-driven, emotion-driven. Did it work for a friend? Did you see it on Instagram? Is it from a celebrity who you think is cool? That's what we're interested in, not really whether an expert thinks it works.
Right.
And so
it's almost like we don't want to. It's like we don't want to put in the work to figure out which self-help is going to work, which should be a red flag to everyone that if you're not ready to do that,
I think it's more. So Dr. Doyle is going to come in with the real answer, but I think my answer to this is that that people buy self-help books as a quick fix, as a hit of dopamine, or as a sense that I have taken the first step toward change. That I've spent money, I've done something worthwhile, and that I have that look, I'm going to change. I have hope, and so really, I believe that buying a self-help book is an act of hope. That you're putting some money behind and a first step, but it is not the actual work of change.
Sure.
Right.
I agree with that.
And
I would, as an avid consumer of self-help literature, past and present, I still eat these things up. I'm still a sucker. And I say that affectionately because again, like I say it often. I'm a self-help person. We're all self-help people that we start out from a default position of maybe, I don't know, I'll give it a go. And by the way, you can do that if you keep your wits about you, right? Like if you've got your Seek Safely compass and you keep your wits about you, like you can be part. Like I always tell people, my goal is not to get people not to go to Date with Destiny. Like I don't. What I want you to do is to go to Date with Destiny, but keep your wits about you, so you can make some intelligent decisions about vulnerability and risk and these kinds of things. But anyway, I'll tell you, as an avid consumer of self-help literature, when I see a book that says, well, here, according to psychologists, here are reviews of self-help books, I'll tell you where my head goes. My head goes, okay, one, there's a conflict of interest. Because lots of mental health professionals view the self-help ecosphere as competition. And so they are in, like, I am one of relatively few mental health professionals that I have ever met that is remotely favorably inclined toward the self-help ecosphere. You bring it up, like, I'll tell you a story. Once when I was interviewing for graduate school, and my goal is, as you know, like, my goal is to be a self-help writer. And the woman who was interviewing me, who went on to be my advisor, asked me, so what are your goals in the field? And she's, they want to hear, well, I want to research this and I want to be this kind of clinician. I'm saying, no, I want to write self-help books. And she had this look on her face like, why? Why would you want to do that?
Get out.
Are you sure? So one, if I saw a book of, here a psychologist reviewing self-help, I'm like, okay, I'm not quite sure that's going to be an objective thing. But the other thing is, I have seen so many, there's such a strain of, I don't know if it's contrarianism or whatever. Like people love dunking on self-help. Like right now on YouTube, I'm on YouTube all the time. I love YouTubers, and right now there's a whole ecosphere on YouTube of people who are just dunking on self-help and gurus and stuff. And look, Gene and I have a podcast where we kind of do the same thing. But I would assume that, like, any review of self-help literature might come from that perspective of, like, oh, let's look at how stupid this is and how these people are looking for quick fixes, and it's blah, blah, blah. And I would make the assumption. Now, mind you, this is all assumptions I would make. Like, I would have, like, this would be an unfair thing to say, but I would immediately assume that, okay, did they read the book in good faith? Did they try the stuff out in good faith, or did they read the book thinking, okay, I'm going to show how stupid and shallow all of this is, and blah, blah, blah. It's really interesting to have conversations with people who take self-help seriously.
Yeah.
Because I can have a conversation with, so for example, having conversations with, I'm talking to Christine right now. Having a conversation with Gene versus having a conversation with Jenny about self-help are very different experiences. Right?
Interesting.
Because Jenny's been into self-help for decades. And she can have that conversation and she can talk about self-help and take it seriously. It's that Gene is relatively newer to the self-help ecosphere.
You know what's interesting?
I'm having a conversation with Christine right now.
Okay. Sorry.
And she came to it under kind of traumatic circumstances.
Yeah.
And so her attitude toward the self-help ecosphere is kind of can be, not always, can be a little different. But my point is that I don't know, like if I saw that book on a shelf, I don't know if it would be my first stop. I'd be interested. So there's another book titled, God, the author escapes me, but it's called like the 50 best self-help books.
I have that one.
You have that one? Yeah.
Got that one too.
Now that's an interesting resource because what it does.
Nobody bought that one either.
I bought it.
No, I did too.
I've got an audio. I love it.
You're one of the 10 who did. Yes. 2 of the 10.
That one's interesting because it just sums up, like, it's really objective. Like, it sums up, like, here are the.
And that one you would think should be an incredible bestseller because then you get 50 in one.
Yes.
But that's also not why people buy these books.
Yeah.
And so it's not even really just for the advice. I really believe. So when I say it's a quick fix, I actually almost don't mean a quick fix in a dismissive way. We all need a quick fix when we're in trouble because it's the boost to keep us going toward the next thing. It's that we're buying a message of hope told in a certain way. And that is really valuable. I can look on my shelf and there are all the books that I studied for my doctoral dissertation. Okay, so there's a lot of them. And then there's like the other research projects. But then there's the whole set of other books that I bought for me at various points in my life. There's all the parenting self-help. There's all the the organized student and smart but scattered for the kids who are having some attentional difficulties. There's these classic books. And so I've got. And those I was not buying, ironically. I was not buying as a professor of self-help or whatever. I was buying those because I was a mom and I needed some advice.
Yeah.
And I still quote from one of these, this baby sleep book that I have somewhere on my shelf. That was so transformative because it had because it said that you always should begin with the end in mind, which is very much a Stephen Covey line.
Very much.
But she puts it in terms of sleep begetting sleep.
Yeah.
And these were transformative things for me because they gave me hope that my baby would sleep.
You bet.
Yeah.
You bet.
Well, I will tell you, I think, Glenn, had I not had a defining moment in my life that perhaps tainted my view of the self-help industry, I actually think I would have easily been more of a self-help person and a little bit less cynical about it all. And I'm not. So, Christine, actually, I recognized very clearly early in my parenting journey when I was buying parenting books that they were very much like self-help books. And I was like, okay, well, this is what I need right now. I need some advice, and definitely I need some hope. I also think that the experience of purchasing books, like I feel this as a writer, buying an empty notebook is like, it is a big, it's like, yes, it's like this like whole thing of possibility.
Yes.
Something that you're ready to create. And
Yes.
it doesn't always pan out that way. I have a lot of, I think that's like a common writer joke that we have like a shelf full of like half written in notebooks, but I definitely can identify with that experience of that high of buying the book before you even really dig into it. You feel like you're doing something significant just by making that purchase. And I do appreciate that. Yeah.
For me, it's planners.
Yes, that too.
Oh, love a good planner.
Love me a good planner.
Love me a good planner.
I buy my mom and we buy the same planner every year. I get it for her as a Christmas present. Okay, I want to ask some silly questions. Can I ask a couple of
we live
quick silly questions? Yeah. Glenn, you mentioned cults before. Yeah. So which cult would you want to join? Which one seemed like the most fun? Or along with that, guru that seems like the most fun that you'd want to hang out with?
So when it comes to cults, like we should be really clear. Like we're being a little playful about it. Like we know that cults ruin lives, and we're not trying to be disrespectful about
100%.
I say this because I have somebody gave me years ago. Somebody gave me you've seen a T-shirt that says "cult leader" in big, and I wore that on Instagram and broke the internet one day.
Oh no!
So that's ironically, I'm wearing it ironically. So with that caveat, that I probably wouldn't really want to join a cult, with the exception of the Catholic Church, which I'm already in. They send the email to Gene, guys. I don't want to hear it.
You can complain
send
to
the
me.
emails to Gene. So you got your classics. You got NXIVM and you got Scientology, both of which I'm really interested in because I know survivors of both of those cults, and I think parts of their philosophies are really interesting. I think that I'm really interested in L. Ron Hubbard as a guy. His story, like there was a book that came out. I don't know the author off the top of my head, but the title of the book is called Barefaced Messiah. And it was a biography of L. Ron Hubbard. And he's a super interesting guy. It's a shame that L. Ron Hubbard felt the need to bullshit about every single aspect of his life, because his actual life was plenty interesting. And he was actually a super smart guy. It's a shame that, he just couldn't keep the megalomania away. He wrote as part of his, he wrote gobs and gobs and gobs of books, but one of his books that he wrote in the development of Scientology is a tiny little book called the Way of Happiness, I think it's called, or the Path to Happiness, I think. It's a really cool, concise little self-help book. It's great. I've put it on to go to sleep before, actually. Like it's really cute. So if Scientology began and ended with kind of those opening stages of, we're going to, it's like Scientology, the basic shtick of Scientology, the Dianetics, is actually very similar to psychoanalysis. It's like psychoanalysis hooked up to a lie detector. It's cool. It's interesting. And I believe that they call them auditors in Scientology, who are trained to do that kind of stuff. Like, they are really skilled at certain aspects of therapy. So again, if that's what Scientology, if that's where it began and ended, I think it'd be cool to be in Scientology. Now we know that's not where it begins and ends, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we know that after,
it gets pretty less fun after
it gets
a short amount of time.
Dark and gross and exploitative and whatnot. The other cult that I've always been super interested in, and again, it's the same thing, that if it began and ended with how it starts, you wouldn't mind it, is the good old Osho and the Rajneesh guys. There's the documentary series Wild Country on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
Is like it's amazingly sympathetic to the cult. Actually, it's incredible.
Yeah. It does make it seem like, I mean, a nice community.
It makes it seem fun and sexy, and
they didn't talk enough to the children who were involved, I think.
Thank you. Right. So with the caveat that I wouldn't actually want to join any cults, sign me up for like the non-toxic version of Scientology and or the Rajneesh cult.
Mm-hmm. Christine, what do you think?
None of them are fun.
None of them.
No, they're just not fun. I mean, like, this is actually an interesting idea. What if you started a really fun cult?
I mean, those are goals, man. That's
yeah. I mean, none of these are like, I was running through all sorts of ideas. None of them are fun. Some of them like pretend to be fun, but no, they're not fun.
Well, that's it. Like, yeah, I think a lot of them present as fun. Like, when you think about Nexium's, their big annual party that they would have, like, that looked like it was a ton of fun.
You bet.
But,
and that's how they describe it. They describe it as like
not fun.
Summer camp for adults.
Summer camp,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that at sending kids to summer camp, I can tell you the overlap between things that summer camps do, that Venn diagram overlap of cults and summer camps. There is a lot of overlap. And but interestingly, where it's like, secret songs, secret handshakes, things that can only, ceremonies that can only happen if you've gone to the camp, all these sorts of things. Yeah. But where it becomes not a problem is that it is time limited, and when people go back to their worlds, they're not told not to sort of talk about their experience. And guess what? They can choose whether they want to go back or not the next summer.
Right.
So all of these sorts of elements, I don't know. I was so concerned with the psychological power of cults that when I chose to do my doctoral dissertation on something in this world, I chose the self-help books because I had a healthy enough respect for the psychological power of these organizations that I felt like I couldn't just study them and stay.
I remember that was something that stuck with me when we first kind of met you early on. I remember you saying that either you had written that in an article or you had said it to my mom or something, that like you didn't attend self-help events particularly because you were just like, they will suck anyone in, even if you're like very, very aware of what's happening.
And I say that because after reading all these, after a period in which I spent, 8 hours a day reading self-help books, I can tell you I was very much affected by the things that I read. And this is reading them with a critical eye for academic purposes. It doesn't matter. A good self-help book plays into your emotions. You see yourself in the advice, and then you make an emotional bond. You start asking questions about, do I have this problem? Should I be looking? Am I sure I don't have this problem? If I don't think I have this problem, I definitely have this problem, right? Because then I'm blocking you can really, I shouldn't say it that way. I really spun myself around many different ways with this stuff. And so I was very happy that I stuck in the safer waters of self-help books.
Mm-hmm. I feel like the beginning of many self-help books is just a series of leading questions that are kind of guiding you to a particular way of assessing yourself, right?
Yes, and in a whole other, we could do a whole other episode on Codependent No More, and the quiz in Codependent No More about whether you are or not you are codependent, which when I used to teach this stuff, I would give to my class of college students as a sort of separate survey, and I
Is
would
everyone
ask,
codependent?
everyone is codependent. We are all,
Crazy.
in fact, because do you know what? Human beings are codependent creatures.
Interesting.
That's also a problem. That's a famous problem with Codependent No More, which is otherwise a great self-help book.
Except that it's so over-inclusive that I think it really, if you do
pathologizes something normal.
And pathologizes being female in our culture,
right?
Absolutely.
Or the way women are socialized.
It's a problem that is shared by, and this is a really frustrating thing. It's a problem that's shared by one of the most famous trauma recovery books.
Body Keeps Score.
Don't get me started on good old Bessel. People are always asking me what I think of Bessel. I had to read Bessel very closely for my dissertation, which is about integrative therapy for complex trauma. What's the book I'm thinking of? God, Christine, you'd know it if I.
I'm sure.
It's a trauma recovery book. That. Why am I blanking on this? It's one
maybe
of the most...
maybe your listeners will chime in. But yes,
it's one of the most well-known books. But it's one of those things where it's
women who love too much. No,
no, but that's
that's another good one, right? I mean, so these books that when I get worked up about this stuff, I get worked up because because there is actually, there are people who have codependency issues. And it's a real thing, and you really need to work through it in a particular. But just because I want to do something nice for my husband or my kids does not make me codependent, right? And so so as some of these books try to be inclusive enough to be bestsellers, they water down the concept. But he's found the book, I think, Dr. Doyle.
I cannot believe I blanked on this. It's called Courage to Heal.
Oh, of course, yes.
And it's one of these. It reminds me. It's always reminded me of Codependent No More, insofar as it's what a lot of people took from Courage to Heal was, if you feel like you might have been abused, you probably were. And that's a really complicated conversation to have, especially for survivors whose experience has been invalidated a lot, and who have been gaslit and blah blah blah. But it's on the one hand it really struck a chord. And that book, again, it's in many ways a really interesting, good, useful self-help book. But it's an absurdly broad statement to say, if you feel like you might be abused and you have these symptoms, you were probably abused. It's absurd. Like it's absurdly over general. But
sounds like Teal may have read that one.
Oh, Teal. We haven't even talked about
Teal in a while. Teal's fun.
Teal and the completion process. But
I have another kind of silly question for you. Back in like the heyday, I would say, of the Tony Robbins type self-help, there were a lot of cassette series or CD series. You could listen to a lot of these things, right? A lot of these programs were available to listen to. And now we can listen to people through podcasts and stuff like that. Which guru do you think has the best voice? Like, who do you want to talk you to sleep?
Joel Osteen.
Really? For real?
So not for I'm not really sure that this is for real for me. But I had a friend who listened to Joel Osteen as what is ASMR?
ASMR.
His ASMR was Joel Osteen, and he would always talk about Joel Osteen's voice.
That's amazing. Okay, good. I'm glad. I was afraid you guys weren't necessarily going to have an answer right away, but you really had one right there.
But now I'm going to have to go listen. I have not listened to Joel Osteen in a long time. I'm going to have to now go listen to some Joel Osteen and
That's
try
so
to.
funny.
We're not going to talk about prosperity gospel tonight because we're running out of time. But you can always tee me up and have me go on prosperity gospel too.
I know exactly what I'm going to say for that one.
Okay.
We were talking about M. Scott Peck earlier.
Yes.
So I told the story about how I came across M. Scott Peck when I was a teenager and decided not to read The Road Less Traveled. I didn't return to M. Scott Peck for years until I was an undergraduate in psychology, and I came across a series of lectures he gave. So there's The Road Less Traveled, which is his big bestseller. Then there's a follow-up to The Road Less Traveled titled Further Along the Road Less Traveled, which is a collected series of his lectures. And at the library, I found the original lectures. So it's not him reading from his book. It's him in the lecture hall. And when I tell you that M. Scott Peck, and I'm specifically speaking when he's in a public speaking, and he's passed away now, but when he was in a public speaking setting, not really when he was reading his books. When he's in a public speaking setting and he's talking about things, homeboy is mesmerizing. And you are all in. Like I remember and that's what sold me on him. And that's what brought me back to reading, like I read Road Less Traveled and one of my favorite self-help books that no one has ever read titled In Search of Stones by M. Scott Peck. If you're familiar with it, go get it. It's great. In Search of Stones by M. Scott Peck. Anyway, I remember the lecture that I found, it was a lecture about, it was titled Consciousness and the Problem of Pain. And it was this really interesting kind of meditation on how we humans have this problem that we experience pain, and like all of our problems basically boil down to that problem. And so how we understand pain and how we think about it. And it wasn't like some bullshit, like just think your way out of pain kind of thing. Like Peck's approach has always, for all its limitations, and it does have limitations. If you haven't read, Christina, did you ever read Boomer Guru?
No.
It's a book about M. Scott Peck from it's good.
Boomer.
Anyway,
That's a good title.
So Peck himself was not perfect, and his approach has limitations. But I think like something that I really respect about his material is he was never about, look, just ignore the pain or think it away or try to even necessarily solve the pain. It's how you engage with the pain and understand the pain that's going to make the difference in your quality of life. And this lecture, and it was not a long lecture. It was like 30 minutes, but he took you down. He talked about mythology and the meaning of pain.
I gotta get access to these.
It's good. It's really good. So anyway, if you ever get the opportunity to listen to M. Scott Peck public speaking, that stuff is
all right. I mean, I'm sure this has got to be, on audio somewhere at this point.
Yeah. No, we'll have to listen now.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I didn't even realize we're so far in. You've been here a little over an hour now. I'm going to have us wrap up. I want you to I'm going to ask one last question. I want you to kind of manifest a self-help book into his existence. What public figure do you wish would write a self-help book?
My entire audience is going to respond as well at once. Like tell Doyle to finally write a book. Or maybe. What public figure? Christine, you said you were going to
somebody out there that you think would have like actually some really good stuff to offer.
Who hasn't written a book?
Who hasn't written a self-help book?
Correct.
I don't know.
And I'll allow that, maybe they'd write a memoir that could be one of those memoirs that turns into a self-help book. It could be that.
I don't know if he's written a book. But I've always been really interested in things that Jim Carrey has had to say about life and depression specifically. So if Jim Carrey ever wrote a book about, and again, for all I know, he has, I will tell you this, kind of on this subject. One of the more interesting self-help books, whatever you think about him as a guy, the comedian and actor Tim Allen, you remember him, the home improvement guy? Wrote a weirdo book. in like 1990, I want to say 95 or 96, titled I'm Not Really Here. And it was kind of equal parts memoir, but he weaves into these meditations on kind of quantum physics and the nature of reality and stuff. And it's all bullshit, but it's really interesting. And I kind of wonder if Jim Carrey, like some of the things I've heard him talk about his experience with depression and these kinds of things, I kind of wonder if maybe it would be the same kind of bullshit interesting. So I would love to see a self-help book by Jim Carrey.
And so one of the best commencement speeches that I've ever read was Stephen Colbert's Knox College commencement speech. And I think a self-help book by Stephen Colbert around life advice might be really quite interesting.
He's a really interesting guy, you bet.
Because he's a really interesting guy. And that commencement speech was really beautiful. But I will actually tell you, for the first time publicly anywhere, that I am working on a very limited run, 5 copies only, self-help book. And it's going to be called I've Thought of Everything by Your Mother. And every one of my children will receive, upon high school graduation, their own copy of I've Thought of Everything by Your Mother. And I have been working on this book for the last 4 years on the notes app of my phone. And it has all of this random life advice that I want to give them. And I am going to put this all into, like, I don't know, some Shutterfly book. But every time I've told somebody about this, they smile and they say, yeah, and then you're going to publish it. And that's going to be a bestseller.
Yes. I know. I want that book.
It's amazing.
So anyway, so yes, that's my goal. But currently it's at a promised limited edition 5 copy run.
Amazing. Okay. Well, thank you guys for joining me. I will say I'm sorry if my cult question was a little bit flippant. We're just trying to keep things light here. No, not a bunch of comments. There was one comment that sometimes we are a little bit detached about these things, which some of our listeners might not be able to be as detached. And I fully appreciate that. So thank you for everybody who joined us, who has made comments, who listened. Yeah, and we'll be back tomorrow with Ask the Docs. I put up a post on our Facebook page. I'll put one up on Instagram as well for people to drop their questions for both Dr. Christine and Dr. Glenn. And we'll be doing that one tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern time.
Forward to seeing you guys then.
Everybody, if you want to follow me back to the Dr. Glenn Patrick Doyle Facebook page, we will do the after party live stream. Give me about 15 minutes. I guess I have to go down to the garage and assess the damage.
God,
to
good luck with that. Sorry.
My car.
Well, keep us posted, Dr. Doyle.
I need, Christine, we didn't even mention, when we were talking about religious self-help, we didn't even mention Harold Kushner and when bad things happen to good people.
Another one. I actually really like that book.
By the way, a good one. I had to read that in college or something.
I've read it many times, and it is an excellent book each time.
Yeah.
So yes, we'll get there. So good luck.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you to both of you. I'll see you tomorrow night. Thank you everybody for watching. Bye-bye.
Ciao. Bye.